How do African tribes catch wild animals without guns or modern tools? From clever baiting to stealthy tracking, these age-old techniques are as brilliant as they are effective. Passed down through generations, these methods prove that survival is truly an art. From birds to big game, here are 10 tricks tribes use to catch any animal. Number 1. Bow and arrow hunting. The bow and arrow, perhaps humanity's most elegant hunting invention, reaches its full potential in the hands of Africa's master hunters. Among the Hadza people of Tanzania, children begin training with miniature bows before they can even walk properly, developing muscle memory that becomes second nature by adulthood. Their hunters can drop tiny songbirds from impossibly far distances, sometimes exceeding 30 yards, with arrows barely thicker than toothpicks. This isn't just skill, it's a relationship with physics itself. The Hadza hunter reads wind direction by feeling it on his cheek, calculates trajectory compensation instinctively, and releases with such controlled breathing that their heartbeat doesn't affect aim. They understand that the key isn't strength, but rather consistency of form and release, which is why their hunting success rate remains astonishingly high even in challenging conditions. What truly transforms the bow from merely lethal to almost supernatural is the pharmacological wisdom of many African tribes. From the San of the Kalahari to the Pygmy tribes of Central Africa, hunters have perfected poison arrows that require only the slightest scratch to bring down large game. Using ingredients that would baffle modern chemists, like the larvae of certain beetles, seeds from obscure plants, or secretions from poisoned dart frogs, they create mixtures that disrupt an animal's nervous system or cardiac function. The Kalahari bushman's poison takes hours to work, allowing hunters to follow wounded animals at a safe distance until they succumb. Number 2. Pitfall traps. Digging a hole might seem simplistic compared to fashioning a bow, but African pitfall traps represent sophisticated environmental engineering. The Maasai warriors don't merely dig random pits. They study animal trails meticulously over weeks, identifying exactly where herds of wildebeest or zebra naturally funnel through landscapes. They calculate soil composition, understanding that digging in areas too sandy will cause collapse, and in clay too hard will leave obvious cracks. The pits themselves follow precise dimensions based on target animals, wider at the bottom than the top to prevent escape, and deep enough that predators themselves can't jump out. Some tribes, like those in the Congo Basin, even incorporate angled sides that become increasingly steep, creating what engineers would recognize as a mathematically perfect trap, where energy required to escape exceeds what the animal can generate. The camouflage covering these pits represents an artistic masterpiece of natural deception. Hunters carefully preserve root systems of grasses when removing the top layer, allowing them to replace this living carpet almost seamlessly. They will often incorporate aromatic plants near trap entrances that mask human scent while attracting herbivores. More advanced designs include false bottoms with secondary chambers, or carefully positioned stakes made from hardened woods that have been fire-hardened for strength and sharpened to diamond-like points. Perhaps most impressive is the maintenance, regularly checking and repairing without leaving tracks, replacing surface vegetation to keep it living and natural-looking, and sometimes even incorporating water drainage systems to prevent flooding during rainy seasons. Number 3. Camouflaged hunting. In the dense forests of Central Africa, hunters have perfected the art of disappearing entirely. The Mbuti people of the Congo Basin transform themselves into living extensions of the forest floor, applying layers of mud mixed with specific plants that not only match the colors of their surroundings, but also mask human scent. This mud mixture isn't applied randomly. It follows intricate patterns that break up the human silhouette, focusing on areas where light naturally catches: the forehead, cheekbones, shoulders, and hands. Children practice sitting motionless for hours from the age of 5, training their bodies to control involuntary movements and even slow their breathing to prevent the slight rise and fall of the chest that might alert prey. Hunters learn to move with incredible patience, sometimes taking 15 minutes just to shift position by a few inches, understanding that animals detect sudden motion far better than they notice gradual changes in their environment. The psychological discipline is as impressive as the physical, maintaining complete focus while barely moving, sometimes for half a day, until the perfect moment arrives. What elevates this camouflage to artistic genius is the use of animal disguises. The Dorobo hunters of Kenya have perfected a technique where they don handcrafted masks and partial skins of animals they hunt. But it's not simply wearing an animal costume. They study their target species for thousands of hours, learning to mimic subtle movements. The casual head tilt of a grazing antelope checking for predators. The ear flicks that signal relaxation. The specific rhythm of four-legged movement. When disguised as vultures approaching a fresh kill, they perfectly reproduce the awkward sideways hop step these birds use when approaching food. Some tribes can even replicate animal sounds so convincingly that they can call young animals toward them or interrupt mating rituals. The San Bushmen are known to approach ostrich nests wearing elaborate ostrich disguises, moving with the distinctive bobbing motion of these birds, even recreating dust-bathing behaviours to avoid suspicion. Number 4. Fire drive hunting. When the dry season reaches its peak and grasses turn golden across the savannas, several African tribes employ one of humanity's oldest alliances, our partnership with fire, to orchestrate hunts of breathtaking scale and precision. Tribes like the Maasai and Hadza don't simply set random blazes, they create calculated fire architectures based on wind patterns, terrain features, and animal behaviour. Starting early in the morning, when winds are most predictable, they ignite specific grasses known to produce thick smoke but relatively low flames, creating what hunters call fear corridors, that animals instinctively avoid without actually burning them. The fire setters work in coordinated teams spread across miles, using signal systems involving smoke colours, whistles, and synchronised timing that would impress military strategists. Some even incorporate counterfires, smaller blazes set in controlled areas that create safety zones by burning fuel before the main fire arrives, demonstrating an intuitive understanding of fire behaviour that modern firefighters would recognise as advanced containment techniques. The waiting hunters positioned at the terminus of these fire drives exhibit equally sophisticated preparation. Rather than forming simple lines, they arrange themselves in geometric formations that account for the specific escape behaviours of target animals. For gazelle, known to make sudden directional changes, hunters space themselves in zigzag patterns to intercept these unpredictable routes. For larger animals like buffalo that tend to charge through obstacles, special braking teams position themselves to redirect rather than stop these dangerous animals. The weapons are equally specialised: lightweight throwing spears for faster animals, heavier thrusting spears with crossbars for larger prey that prevent the wounded animal from charging further down the shaft towards the hunter. What makes this technique even more remarkable is how tribes have developed ways to selectively target specific species, sometimes using aromatic plants in the initial fires that certain animals find particularly frightening while others ignore. Number 5. Waterhole ambush. The waterhole ambush is one of the oldest and most effective hunting techniques used by African tribes across the continent. Hunters understand a fundamental truth of survival in the harsh African landscape. Every animal, no matter how powerful or elusive, must eventually drink water. This knowledge becomes a powerful weapon in the hunter's arsenal. Tribal hunters carefully study animal behaviour, learning exactly when different species visit waterholes: lions and elephants in the evening coolness, antelope in the morning hours. They patiently construct hidden observation posts using local materials that blend perfectly with the surroundings. underground pits covered with branches near desert waterholes, or elevated platforms in trees near forest streams. The key to the waterhole ambush lies in its perfect combination of patience and positioning. Hunters might wait motionless for many hours, sometimes entire days, their bodies covered in mud or ash to mask their human scent. Their weapons, be it spears, bows, or nets, are prepared in advance to ensure silent deployment. The hunters position themselves downwind, understanding that animals have keen senses of smell that would otherwise alert them to human presence. When the right moment arrives, when the animal is most vulnerable with its head lowered to drink, the hunters strike with practiced precision. This technique isn't just about waiting. It requires intimate knowledge of animal behaviour, wind patterns, and terrain that is passed down through generations, representing thousands of years of accumulated wisdom about the natural world. Number 6. Spring snare traps. Spring snare traps are a clever way of using nature's own forces to catch animals. They rely on the energy stored in a bent sapling or branch, turning it into a quick, automatic capture system. Hunters start by selecting a strong but flexible branch that can snap back with force. They bend it down and secure it using a trigger system, usually a carefully tied knot or a carved wooden peg. Attached to this is a noose made from woven plant fibres, animal sinew, or even modern wire. The setup is designed so that even the slightest movement, an animal stepping into the loop or nudging the trigger, will set it off instantly. One of the best things about these traps is how they can be adjusted for different kinds of prey. For ground birds like guinea fowl, the snare is set low along their walking paths. For larger animals like antelopes, the loop is placed at chest or neck height on game trails. Some of the more advanced designs even lift the captured animal off the ground, preventing it from escaping or being eaten by scavengers. Different African tribes have their own unique versions of these traps. The Mbuti people in the Congo rainforest make lightweight snares that catch monkeys high up in the trees, while the Maasai use stronger setups to trap predators that threaten their livestock. These traps aren't just hunting tools, they are examples of traditional knowledge, passed down for generations and adapted to the unique needs of each environment. Number 7. Tracking and exhaustion. Hunting, tracking and exhaustion hunting stands as perhaps the most physically demanding yet uniquely human hunting method employed by African tribes, with the San Bushmen of the Kalahari Desert having mastered this technique to an art form. This method begins with reading the land like an open book, interpreting subtle indentations in the soil, displaced pebbles, broken twigs, and even the age of animal droppings. The hunters can distinguish between dozens of animal species purely by their tracks, determining not just what animal passed by, but its size, speed, health condition, and how long ago it travelled through the area. This tracking ability has been scientifically documented to rival or exceed modern forensic techniques, with experienced trackers able to follow trails over seemingly impossible terrain, hard-pan desert, rocky outcroppings, and even across water. Once the prey is identified, the actual exhaustion hunt begins, a test of human endurance against animal speed. Though animals like antelopes and wildebeests can easily outrun humans in short sprints, humans possess superior thermoregulation through sweating, allowing for prolonged activity without overheating. The hunters maintain a steady, relentless jog for hours under the scorching sun, never allowing their prey to rest or cool down. They track the increasingly erratic movements of the panicked animal as it overheats, eventually approaching it when it collapses from heat exhaustion and dehydration. This hunting method requires extraordinary physical conditioning, with hunters covering 15 to 30 miles in pursuit. But it also demands deep knowledge of animal behaviour, terrain navigation, and exceptional mental fortitude to continue when the body screams to stop. Perhaps most remarkably, this method requires no complex weapons, just the uniquely human combination of intelligence, communication, and physical endurance. Number 8. Dash bait and decoy techniques. Bait and decoy techniques showcase the intelligence and creativity of African tribal hunters, proving that successful hunting isn't just about tracking prey, it's about outsmarting it. Instead of chasing animals down, hunters manipulate their behavior, luring them into traps or ambushes with carefully prepared bait and clever deceptions. Each bait is designed to attract a specific species. For example, honey-soaked branches lure honey badgers, salt-rich soil attracts herbivores, and fresh meat scraps draw in carnivores. Hunters follow strict protocols when preparing bait, often using smoke or special herbs to mask their scent and make the bait seem completely natural. Some Central African tribes have designated baiting areas that have been in use for generations. Over time, the soil absorbs minerals and animal scents, turning these locations into well-known gathering spots where hunters can predictably find their prey. But bait is only part of the strategy. The most advanced hunters also use sound mimicry and visual decoys to trick animals into coming closer. The Hadza people, for instance, can perfectly imitate the cry of a baby baboon, triggering protective adults to rush in, right into an ambush. In the Congo Basin, hunters recreate the sound of a wounded buffalo to attract lions and hyenas looking for an easy meal. Some take deception even further, crafting wooden antelope heads and wearing them while creeping toward unsuspecting herds. Others build life-sized animal decoys designed to mimic a young or injured animal, which predators find hard to resist. Some of these techniques require incredible skill and nerves of steel. In Cameroon, certain tribes use controlled honey spills to attract bears, leading them straight toward hidden pit traps. These hunters don't just rely on brute force. They use an intimate knowledge of animal psychology. They understand which distress sounds make predators curious, which scents mask human presence best, and how different animals react to the sight or sound of another in trouble. Number 9. Rock corridors and funnel traps. Rock corridors and funnel traps represent communal hunting at its most strategic, transforming the landscape itself into a weapon through careful environmental engineering. Tribes across Africa construct these elaborate systems by arranging rocks, brush, branches, and natural features into gradually narrowing pathways that can extend for miles across the savanna or desert. The outer ends of these funnels are intentionally subtle and wide, with barely noticeable barriers that gently direct animal movement without triggering alarm. As the pathways narrow, the barriers become more substantial, eventually forming corridors where animals can move only forward, their natural escape routes blocked by strategically piled stone walls or dense thorn bush barriers that can stand 6 feet tall. The true genius of this method lies in its scalability and the way it transforms individual human weakness into collective strength. A single hunter might be no match for a herd of wildebeest or zebra, but by working together, sometimes involving the entire tribe including women and children as drivers, the community can channel dozens or even hundreds of animals toward a predetermined killing zone. At the terminus of these funnels might be several different trap types: concealed pits with sharpened stakes, nets stretched between trees, or simply a narrow corridor where waiting hunters can efficiently dispatch animals that can no longer flee in multiple directions. Some of the most impressive examples of these structures can still be found in northern Kenya and parts of Ethiopia, where ancient stone funnel walls have stood for centuries, some extending for several kilometres across the landscape. Number 10. Fishing with natural poisons. Fishing with natural poisons is one of the oldest examples of human chemistry, showing the deep plant knowledge African tribes have gained over thousands of years. From the rivers of West Africa to the streams of the Rift Valley, tribal fishermen carefully select plants with special compounds that affect fish but remain safe for humans. Some of the most common plants used include species from the Tephrosia genus, derris roots, crushed balanite seeds, and acacia bark. These plants contain natural chemicals like rotenone and saponins, which don't kill the fish but disrupt their ability to breathe through their gills. The preparation is a community event. Elders and young people gather by the river to pound these plants on rocks, creating a foamy greenish paste, just as their ancestors did for generations. Once added to the water, these natural fish stunners turn a calm pool into a fishing hotspot that brings the whole village together. The crushed plants are placed upstream, often early in the morning when fish are most active, allowing the mixture to spread gradually. Within minutes, fish start behaving strangely, swimming in circles, gasping for air, and eventually floating belly up, but still alive. That's when the real action begins. Children, adults, and elders rush into the water, scooping up the stunned fish with their hands or woven baskets. This method is highly selective. Small fish recover quickly and swim away, while larger fish remain disoriented long enough to be caught. The best part? The water cleans itself within hours as the plant compounds break down naturally under the sun, leaving no harm behind. This technique has allowed sustainable fishing for centuries, proving that working with nature instead of against it can provide food without depleting resources. Number 11. Deadfall traps. Deadfall traps show both the engineering skill and deep ecological knowledge of African tribal hunters. These traps use simple but effective physics. A heavy object is set up to fall when triggered. But the real genius is in the trigger mechanisms, which vary based on local materials and target animals. The most common type is the figure 4 trigger, a structure made from 3 carefully carved sticks arranged in the shape of the number 4. Each stick has precise notches, allowing the trap to balance until the slightest touch sets it off. Hunters choose the deadfall weight based on their prey, using small flat stones for rodents and birds, or large logs to take down dangerous animals like leopards or hyenas. What makes African deadfall traps special is their seamless blending with the environment. Unlike modern metal traps, these are built entirely from natural materials, logs, stones, and sticks, that blend into the landscape. Hunters go the extra mile by weathering the trap materials beforehand, sometimes rubbing them with dirt or animal dung to remove human scent. Even the bait placement is strategic. Small enclosures force animals to approach from a specific direction, ensuring they step directly under the crushing weight. Skilled hunters fine-tune the sensitivity of their traps, making some sturdy enough to ignore small animals, while others trigger at the slightest movement. Some tribes even mark their trap locations using secret symbols, arrangements of sticks or stones that look random to outsiders but act as coded messages among hunters. These traps are a perfect example of traditional knowledge combining science, craftsmanship, and survival skills into one deadly but efficient tool. Number 12. Spiderweb net traps. The spiderweb net trap is a perfect example of how African tribal hunters turn simple materials into highly effective tools through careful craftsmanship and smart placement. These nets start as plant fibers, strips of bark, tough grasses, or coconut husk fibers that skilled artisans, often women, twist into strong cords. Using only their hands and a spindle, they create hundreds of feet of uniform thread over several days. This thread is then woven into precise net patterns, with mesh sizes adjusted to match different animals. Tiny weaves for birds and insects, medium sizes for hares and antelopes, and larger gaps for bigger game. The weaving process follows age-old geometric patterns, often designed so that the centre has smaller openings while the edges widen, naturally guiding animals toward the middle where they become trapped. The real magic of these nets, however, is in how they are deployed. Hunters scout animal paths by looking for trampled grass, scattered droppings, or tree bark rubbed smooth from repeated use. Before dawn, they stretch their nets across these paths using flexible saplings to create tension systems that snap shut when animals run into them. The best versions have multiple layers, making it harder for prey to escape even if they break through the first barrier. Since these nets are nearly invisible, sometimes treated with natural dyes to match the surroundings, they are especially effective at dawn and dusk when visibility is low. Some tribes enhance this method by working as a team, using noise and movement to drive animals into the hidden nets. These nets are incredibly valuable. Well-made ones last for years, carefully repaired after each use, and sometimes even passed down through generations. In some communities, certain nets hold deep cultural significance, connecting today's hunters with their ancestors. Number 13. Dugout water traps. Dugout water traps show how African tribal hunters turn an animal's survival instincts against it. The method starts with studying animal behaviour around watering holes to map out their approach paths. Hunters then dig shallow pits, about 2 to 3 feet deep, right in these pathways. What makes these traps so effective is the preparation of the pit's interior. Hunters collect a special type of slippery clay, sometimes travelling long distances to find it. They carefully line the pit with this clay, smoothing it out so there are no rough spots for an animal to gain traction. A small amount of water is added to create a slick, mud-like surface without making the trap too obvious. Finally, the pit is camouflaged with natural materials, grass, leaves and twigs, so it blends seamlessly into the environment but won't support an animal's weight. These traps work because they take advantage of natural animal behaviour. Thirsty animals, eager to reach the water, tend to speed up as they get closer, making them less cautious about the ground. When an animal steps into the hidden pit, the slippery clay prevents it from getting a firm footing, while the water creates suction, making it harder to lift its legs. The more it struggles, the worse it gets. The pit's muddy texture thickens, increasing its grip. The pit is deep enough to prevent escape, but not so deep that the animal injures itself when it falls, ensuring the meat remains intact. These traps can capture a wide range of animals, from small antelopes to powerful predators like lions, which become helpless despite their strength. Hunters sometimes place these traps in tight spaces where animals have limited room to move or dig multiple pits in a row to improve their chances. Once the animal is exhausted, the hunters can approach safely and use spears or nets to finish the hunt with minimal effort. Number 14. Pack hunting with dogs. The relationship between African tribal hunters and their dogs is one of the oldest and most effective hunting partnerships. Unlike modern hunting dogs bred for specific traits, these traditional dogs are medium-sized, built for endurance and heat resistance, rather than speed or strength. Their training starts from birth, as puppies grow up alongside hunters and older dogs, learning their roles through experience rather than strict commands. Many tribes have rituals for raising hunting dogs, including feeding them small portions of meat from successful hunts, letting them sleep near hunting gear, or using herbal mixtures believed to enhance their senses. Some East African tribes even give dogs special diets to improve their stamina or scent tracking abilities. Communication between hunters and dogs relies on whistles, hand signals, and body language, rather than spoken commands, allowing for silent coordination across vast distances. What makes this hunting method so effective is how it combines the strengths of both species. Dogs contribute speed, tracking ability, and sharp instincts, while humans provide strategy, weapons, and an understanding of terrain. The way hunts unfold depends on the prey. For aggressive animals like bush pigs or wildcats, the dogs form a circle around the target, keeping a safe distance while barking to alert the hunters. For fast prey like antelopes, the dogs work in shifts, with fresh ones joining the chase while tired ones drop back, ensuring the animal stays under pressure. Some tribes use a more strategic approach, directing the dogs to drive prey toward narrow passages where hidden hunters wait to strike. In some cases, dogs wear protective collars with spikes to guard against attacks, or small bells that help hunters track them in dense vegetation. This hunting system is highly adaptable. Dogs can be trained to target different animals just by changing hunting tactics and signals. Beyond their role in hunting, these dogs hold deep cultural significance, often receiving names that honour great hunters or ancestors. Some even receive ceremonial burials, reflecting their importance to the tribe's survival. Number 15. Bee swarm distraction. The bee swarm distraction method is a creative use of nature's smallest creatures to overpower even the largest animals. This technique relies on deep knowledge of honeybee behaviour passed down through generations. Hunters seek out aggressive bee colonies, particularly African honeybees, known for their fast and fierce defensive responses. Some tribes cultivate relationships with certain colonies over time, placing artificial hives made from hollow logs, clay pots, or woven baskets near animal pathways. These hives are often enhanced with special scent mixtures, beeswax, propolis, and aromatic plants to attract and sustain strong bee populations. The most skilled hunters can even identify colonies with the most aggressive defenders, essentially raising warrior bees for hunting purposes. Before a hunt, some hunters create protective gear, such as layers of mud on their skin, or coverings made from plants that bees avoid. Smoke bundles are sometimes carried to help control the bees when needed. Executing this hunt requires careful timing and teamwork. When a large animal, like an elephant, buffalo, or rhino, is spotted, one hunter approaches the hive with a noise-making tool, such as a stick with rattles or a special whistle. They disturb the hive just enough to send an attacking swarm toward the animal without getting stung themselves. The goal is to trigger a controlled bee attack, forcing the animal into a panic. The bees naturally target sensitive areas, eyes, ears, and soft tissues, causing intense pain and confusion. Unable to fight back effectively, the animal flees blindly along the easiest escape route. Meanwhile, hunters are already waiting along these paths, often in trees or on high ground, where they can attack safely with spears or arrows. The brilliance of this method lies in how it neutralizes an animal's natural advantages. Size, strength, thick hide, and sharp horns or tusks mean nothing when the animal is blinded and overwhelmed by stinging insects. Even the most dangerous animals become vulnerable. Compared to direct confrontation, this method is far safer for hunters and allows them to take down animals that would be nearly impossible to hunt using traditional weapons alone. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe to this channel if you haven't done that already.